Okie dokie. Now I'm just going to if you have a question, just sing out. I'm just going to minimize it so that that's not annoying so much. So I just thought I'd cover off some of the really quick and easy things that there were to get rid of. One of which is on a lot of the chairs, there was a huge amount of bird poo.
Oh.
This is my before shot and this is my after shot. So as you can see, I've brightened it up significantly. A lot of my images were edited in Photoshop, as I usually do with my images. But if I go back to this one here, a really good place to start in Lightroom is often just hitting auto.
Yes.
And then you can start playing with it from there. But that's just a really, really good place to start. So the quickest and easiest way to get rid of all the bird poo is with the healing tool. So you've either got, or the remove tool is it called now. So you've either got the healing tool, the clone tool, and the remove tool. I find most of the time the heal tool is probably enough. And you can tell it where you want it to move. So if it's picked an area that you don't like, you can grab this other one and move it. I don't know if you know that or not, so you can move it around. If you've got so many points that you can't see what you're doing, if you press H, it will actually hide them and H will bring them back. So if you've got a lot of sensor spots or things like that that you're trying to make to clean up, and you've got so many of these little damn things on your screen that you can't figure out where you're going next, then pressing H is a really good way to get rid of it. So that's probably just a quick and easy way to fix it. I generally have my feather right down and I work in small areas at a time. If I was to use my clone stamp, which I could, it's often, sometimes you have to jump between the clone stamp and the heal tool. Sometimes I find one works better than the other, but you can just move them around. So you can do it that way. So it's pretty easy just to go through and clean them up. So that's pretty much the first one I wanted to cover. So I'm just going to close that, even though I haven't finished with that one. Things that I did do to this image, and these are neither here nor there. It really depends on how much beauty retouching you want to do. If I was to jump between the two of them, if I bring it down, so come back here, you silly thing. So Emily, there's a few little hairs that are on her face, and she's also got this beauty spot that I know for a fact that she's not overly fond of. But at the same time, she doesn't care if it gets left. But I generally tend to remove those and any sort of flyaway hairs, especially around the eyes, that I find distracting. And again, you can do that with the healing tool. If there's anything in your background that is distracting, then you could probably come through with the remove tool and fix that. So I could have, if I wanted to, and let's see how well it does. I'm actually going to select this corner here and I want to see if Lightroom will fix it. Now I need to grab a little bit more than the area I want to get rid of. And I'm just going to hit remove. I beautifully edited her face in this photo and I realized that I never even got rid of the bird poo there. So that actually did a pretty good job.
Oh.
It gives you 3 options of what you could use. Sometimes I don't actually mind that one, even though number 3 covered it better. The lighting isn't that great. So
Yeah.
I'm going to select this one here, and I'm pretty happy with where it's cropped it. There's a little bit more at the top there, but if I was to come in and give it a crop, and I usually use 8.5 or 8.5 by 11 because that's what they classify as a magazine crop or a magazine ratio. So I'd crop it there. So it cropped out a lot of that stuff anyway. So that cleaned all that up. Now, what do I want to have a look at? Okay, so this one here, also edited in Photoshop, but we can, so as you can see, the lavender was just a little bit lackluster. I'm just going to hit auto again on this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that removal tool. And this is where, let's see how well it works and how well it doesn't. And I'm just sort of going to do that first row of lavender. And this time, instead of subtract, I'm going to click add. And we'll see how clever it is to adding some lavender in. You still click remove, even though you're adding. It does make no sense, but anyway. Sometimes this is where Photoshop can actually get better. Lightroom's catching up, but it's not quite there. So it has added more lavender.
Oh, okay.
And again, I probably like one. It could probably go to add more, so I'm going to try and do another pass. Come on. Okay. That's actually pretty impressive what it can do these days.
Yeah.
Have you ever used the AI functions in Lightroom before, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for a play around.
I've used it for noise.
Yeah. So again, I don't know which one I like. Probably 2. So that's added in some lavender. When it comes to what I did in Photoshop, when it opens, probably should have reopened these. So that was the base image that I had from Lightroom, and I did a little bit of just an adjustment on the colors. I then started with adding more lavender in. So I'm like, what was that? Okay. So I found these little highlights here a bit distracting. So I also removed those. Now that could be something that could easily be done again with the remove tool, or you could go for the distraction tool. So if I just highlight those and click on generative fill. Now I don't even have to say anything. I just have to click generate. And because I've clicked on a little bit around what I want to remove, it should eventually get rid of it. So again, it'll give you a couple of different options. And that one's probably better, although it's not as good as the original ones that I had. So I'm just going to get rid of it. In regards to the lavender, so I've put in quite a bit of lavender. So if I was to come back to this image here, and again, just with my lasso tool, and I'm just going to lasso that. And here, this is where, oops, if I could spell. Oh, come on, Julie. I'm just going to type in lavender bush. And that's pretty much what I did for all of the lavender that I was adding in. I just popped in lavender or lavender bush, and it would give me several different options. Let's see what it gives me this time. So, yeah, so it's blended it in with what was there. So it was a bit sparse there. So I've added in a bit more. Don't like that one. I think I prefer the first one, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I can then just continue my way on, selecting even more areas in the background, and again, just putting lavender bushes in. I also did a little bit of skin retouching on Emily. Nothing huge. I do like to try and keep it a little bit soft and a little bit natural, but I did want to just get rid of a few flyaway hairs and things like that. When it comes to color grading, it's a really old program, so unless you've got it hanging around on your computer, it's called Exposure 3, and I just really love it. It's a very old sort of film type look that it gives to it, and it adds a little bit of grain to the images, so it gives it that sort of vintage look. But there are a lot of other programs. So if you've got anything like Nick Collection or anything like that, you could go and do something like that. If you've ever used, and you can get these trials. So DXO Film Pack is a really good one if you like vintage film looks. And you can get a free trial for that. I can put the link in for you in somewhere. Probably on the bottom of the YouTube video. And this one gives you some really old film emulations, which can be loads of fun to play with. You watch, it's going to go, no, it's not going to complain. Yes, it is. Remind me later. I knew you would complain. So this has got lots of different film looks, but there's this thing called time machine. So if you are after something in particular, so like the 19th century or early 2000s, if you're after a particular sort of look to your images, you can actually apply that to your photos. So if you were looking for, I'm just trying to think, where's an era that might be? So, okay, so 1910s, we're going old a bit, but, there's famous photos throughout history. So there was the Great Floods of Paris in 1910. There was Lenhart and Lundrock did some photos. There's all sorts of things that you can copy those things and actually put them to your photo. So you can have a lot of fun playing with that. But of course, you can come in and you can customize it. So if you're after a particular type of film, different looks, different grains, things like that. So you can play around with all of that. So I'm not going to get too bogged down in it. I'm trying to get out of here.
Julie, would you leave that soft bit of lavender on the front, on the right-hand side there?
Sorry, would I?
Would you leave that soft lavender, the slightly more washed out bit in the front?
Let me just hang on.
I can't really see it now that it's gone different colour.
Oh, can you see the program that I'm in at the moment? Or are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're in a different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this one here.
Yes, this down the front. Yes.
Yeah, so you can come in and you can, if you wanted to boost that up, and you could do it in Lightroom or you could do it in Photoshop. So if you come in Photoshop and loosely grab that area, and I'd probably just feather it a little bit just so that it's not a harsh edge,
Yes.
but you could come in and you could probably boost the saturation and
Oh,
darken it down. But you do have to be careful because it's going to boost everything when you do it that way. If you were to, if I, let me just jump back into, so if I was to come into Lightroom, I'm going to close this. You can actually play with the, where am I? The point color. I don't know. Have you ever used the point color before?
no, I don't think so. Oh, well, I
Okay.
can't remember if I have.
So it's in with the color mixer. So if you use the point color, you can actually pick the color that you want to work with, and then you can darken it down from there. So
Oh,
you can, oh, hang on, that's just picked all of them. Wrong one. So it is adjusting to some of the other colors, but you can get very specific when you start moving your different sliders.
okay.
Oh, come here, you stupid thing. Um, so you can get very specific with what you want to. My phone's going off and driving me nuts. So yeah, so if you click on a particular color, then you can change all of that. You
Okay.
can, if you want to, because it's quite a bit brighter, the other thing that you can do in there is if you go into your masking tools, you could do something like a radial gradient or a linear gradient or a linear gradient. I'm just going to make that a bit smaller. And I can come in and I can do highlight recovery. So I can make that a little bit darker as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's brought the, so if I was to get out of that. So if I was to look at the before and after, and it's not coming up. Why isn't it coming up? But there, there should have been a little bit of a difference in of this a little bit there, but not much. I mean, sometimes you've got to be pretty subtle when you're working on these things, but there is room to play around with it, and it gives you something that just a couple of little tools in your arsenal. Of course, if you wanted to completely get rid of that, you could replace it with Lavender using AI as well. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, there's just a couple of different ways that you could play with that. Um, Okie dokie. Let's just. Uh, um, okay, what else did I want to go to? Again, I've added in lavender in that one, and I'm like, for whatever reason, I haven't got the original file, but I can open that back up in Photoshop. Come on. So this was just a very different lavender. I had it blurred at the front, and then I sort of wanted this to be a little bit in focus because I thought it was sort of along the same lines as this lavender here.
Mm.
And you're not going to open, are you? Come on. No, now it's going to open 10 times. Yeah, of course it will. Yeah, so I went through okay, so I must have added the lavender in Lightroom and then brought it into Photoshop. Again, I've done that film preset onto it. The other thing that I did was I did a little bit of curves to brighten the whole thing up. And the other thing that I did was added a gradient map. I don't know if you've ever added a gradient map to sort of merge your colors into more of a sort of constant spectrum. I could have done it in Lightroom, but I find that it's actually easier to do it in Photoshop. In Photoshop, you've actually got gradients and gradient maps. Gradients just put colors on top of your image, whereas a gradient map will actually change all the colors and tones in your image. So by clicking on here, it's going to go black and white because that's what I've got picked, but I can go through and I can collect or select. So for instance, I wanted the sort of purples and pinks and things like that because of the lavender and trying to get that sort of blue hour look. I've selected one. I don't even know if it's the same one I had before, and I have changed it to soft light, and it has given a very strong color toning to it. But when I bring it back, it just sort of softly mutes it all together so that they all just sort of match in.
Okay.
So, especially when you've, sorry? No? Okay. Um, yeah, when you've got sort of greens and blues and browns and yellows, sometimes just doing a little bit of color toning can sort of bring it all in together. Um, what was the other? Okay, so this was one of the ones that had a little bit of an issue with the lighting and the shine on her face. So if I did have there are others there. I can't come here, you stupid. Okay, so the other I really liked this image, but there was a couple of things that were driving me nuts about it. There was shine on her face, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of it. It's also slightly blurry, even though I loved the photo. It is slightly blurry, and I'm going to show you how you can correct it with having a look at another program. I don't know whether you've ever used Topaz Denoise and Topaz Sharpen and things like that. I'll have a quick look at that. And there's also quite a lot of grain. So, as well as it needed to be edited in general. So, this was the image that I got as my finished image, which corrected the lighting. It corrected, I even put a lavender bush in the background there. Good. I just selected that in Lightroom and yeah, it put a lavender bush there. Gotta love it. Various distractions and things like that that you can get rid of in the background. So yeah, so what I did on that one. So initially, The best thing I've found with getting rid of the shine on face is probably just pulling the highlights back. As stupid as it sounds, that's frequently more than enough to fix it. If it's still shiny in a couple of spots, a trick that I use, and you can either do this in Lightroom or you can do it in Photoshop. If you go to the clone stamp and I can select an area I want it to use and just paint over it a little bit. Why did it? Oh, Lightroom's being funny tonight. What are you doing, you silly thing? It does not want to work. What is going on? Let's just reset the clone tool and see if we can try that again. That's a little bit better. I don't know what it was doing before. It was having a little bit of a hissy fit. So I've found that if you paint over, no, it's doing it again, stupid thing. I have no idea. Okay. Let's try that. I'll show you in Photoshop. I don't know why it's doing that. It's just putting weird spots all over it. But using the clone tool, especially if you drop the opacity of it a little bit, it allows you to come in and fix up some of those really shiny areas. Now I just have to flatten my image because another thing that I did was I didn't like this chair. And you can do this in Photoshop or Lightroom, is I just lassoed it and just, you can put fill, you can do delete and fill, you can do generative fill. There's several different things that you can do, but I'm just going to click delete and fill and it's gone. It's a little bit blurry there. I could probably redo it and have another go, but it's up to you. Right, so as I was saying, with the shiny spots, so I'm going to go to the clone stamp tool. I like to set my opacity to about 30%. And I'm just going to pick an area that's not quite so shiny and just cover it off. And it just helps remove some of the shine, especially if you've already dropped the highlights, and just using the heal tool just to get rid of some of those flyaway hairs and so forth. The other thing that I want to correct, and have either of you ever used Topaz products before?
No, I've seen it. My computer's not strong enough to use it.
Oh, bugger, I know that feeling.
I know.
All right.
I have, not very much.
Do you want me to have a quick run through?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I've got, I'm going to go into Topaz Sharpen, and what that'll do will bring some definition back into the face. It needs to be used sparingly when you're using any of these sharpen products because it can do some horrible things to your images. So it'll just run through. So that's before on the left, where you can see her eye is still a little bit fuzzy, whereas on the right, it has brought it back into focus. Of course, it's also sharpened like all her pores, and any wrinkles and things like that. So like I said, you probably need to use it a little sparingly. There are other programs that you can use. Even in Photoshop, if you go in and you use the sharpen and the unsharpen mask and things like that, you can sharpen your images up slightly, but they're not always fantastic. but they can. But another one that you can do, and I probably shouldn't have hit that. Hang on, I'm going to cancel processing because it'll take too long. Another one that you can do is if you go into neural filters in Photoshop. Have you played with your neural filters before? No. Okay. So you've got a few different things that you can do in that. You've got things like skin smoothing. Another one is depth blur, which is another really good one that you can use. A lot of these will have like beta written next to it. So what you actually will need to do is turn it on, and you may need to download it, if that makes sense. And it will automatically find the face, and you can apply smoothing and things like that to it. If you bring the blur back, it's supposed to sharpen the image a little bit. Whether it's doing a brilliant job or not is another story. I think it has improved it just a little bit. And then you can say whether you're happy with it or not. These are what they call beta testers. So they're not the final version of the image, or not the final version of that tool, I should say, but there are ones there. So if you're into skin smoothing, or if you want to smart portrait, I think, is that another one? This one's actually really fun. You can change, so you can change their smile. Yeah. I'm not kidding. You can put it just puts like teeth in and things like that. You can change how old they look. So if somebody's looking a bit haggard, you can make them look a little bit younger. If their hair's a little thin, you can change their expression. See, look now, it's awful, absolutely awful. So if you
Where I?
if you want something to give you a really good giggle, go play with that for 10 minutes or so. You'll be killing yourself laughing. Am I satisfied the result? No, that's awful. Oh, but yeah, so but you can play around with global settings. You can actually change the direction that the head is. It's quite astounding.
Oh my gosh.
But this is all new AI technology that's coming in. But so I'm just going to cancel and get out of that. But if you're looking for any of that stuff, it's in filter, and it's under neural filters. So you can adjust various things for that. So if your photos are a little bit blurry, then sometimes you can rescue them. But honestly, sometimes it's just not even worth the effort. If it's blurry and you miss the mark, and I think from memory, it wasn't so much that I missed the focus point. I think because my focus point is quite, if I look at everything around her, everything else is in blur. But I think it's the tip of her nose
Yeah.
that I got as opposed to her eye. But I think my shutter speed was a little slow on that one. I'm just trying to think what my shutter speed. Oh, it's 1/200th of a second. So no, it shouldn't be that. It should just be that, yeah, for whatever reason, I missed my focus point, and it was here on the tip of her nose. Whereas focus, when it comes to portrait, should always be on the eyes, and always on the eye closest to you. So if they're sort of looking a little askew and not directly at you, you should have this eye in focus more than this one, depending on what focus or what aperture you use. I think most of these were at 2.8 or something like that. So the other one, let me get out of there. No, I'm not going to do that. What was I looking for? I know what I was looking for. So something else that was mentioned, and I don't even know where the final image is that I was working on for this one. But anyway, it must be there somewhere. So there's a couple of things that were really quite distracting in this image. These little green thingies, which drove me absolutely insane. So you can very easily come in with the heal tool and get rid of those. And just have to sort of move your way around. There was some dark spots that I actually also found a little bit annoying. And there was the sky. Now, unfortunately, the sky didn't really want to play. And look, to be honest, when I got there and we were sort of looking around at where the sun was setting, I don't think that we were ever going to, even if the sun went off, I don't think we're ever going to be in a position to actually get a sunset anyway. But it was asked if, I can't even remember who it was, but somebody asked if I could show how sky replacement works. I've only got one image that's got a bit of sky in it. Because the sky was pretty crap, I kept it out of most of my images, but it's pretty easy to do in Photoshop. It's easy to do in a lot of other programs, Luminar, Neo, and things like that. It's super easy to do. If you go to Edit and go to Sky Replacement, and it will give you some options when it loads up. So you've got spectacular skies, there's blue skies, there's sunsets, and you can add your own skies in as well, and you can buy skies and things like that. But if I tend to, and I have been for years, I've been sort of making a collection of my own my own skies, and I tend to bring them in. So I'm just going to collect that one. So this is where it is. It's put it in there, but it hasn't done the greatest job lining it up. So I can just grab it and I can move it around. I can shift the edge of it. I can fade the edges of it off. So this is where the edges come in. You can change the brightness of it. And you can change the temperature, but you can only really warm it up or cool it down. So you can go to the yellow, that's going to warm it up a bit. If you go to the blue, that's going to cool it down.
Julie, if it was your own image,
Yep.
how would you do that?
How would you do that? Yep.
Yes.
So I would click on that and I would go down to the bottom here.
Yes.
And select a sky.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, where's my skies? I can't find my skies. So I can just grab a cloud and it's put it in and I can use that.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, no worries. So you can flip it. If you click this little drop down, you can change the lighting mode. So you can have it either screen, which lightens it, or multiply, which darkens it. You can adjust your foreground lighting. So that's everything in front of your scene. So if you want it brighter in the foreground or if you want it darker, edge lighting, color adjustments, things like that. So you can really sort of play around with it. But once you've done that, you then need to click OK. I suggest putting it on a new layer, because what it does is it actually puts it all in this neat little folder. And if you need to come and play with any section of it again, you can come and do that. So even if you want to play with the masking, or if you want to move things around, anything like that, you can come and do it. So I can still play with that image there and have it so that it fits where I want it to go. Otherwise, if I didn't want to do that and I just wanted to get rid of everything that was in there, I could just select that, go to generative fill, and get rid of the sky, which is what I did in some of the spots where I had a little gap. And it still gave me sky, but it filled in some of it. Good on you. Yeah. Oh, and it put a drone in. Look at that. Bless its little heart. It put a drone. No, I don't want that. Don't put any of it. Oh, how funny is that? Yeah, beautiful AI. You can never figure out what it's going to do. One of the other things that I did in one of the images, which was quite interesting, I did a little bit of a selection, and I put a bunch of lavender in a basket.
Oh.
And it actually, I can't even find the photo now. I'll have to go through the hundreds of the others. I thought I'd picked it, but I wrote down a few numbers and I thought, yeah, I'll just get those ones. But I've actually put like a bunch of lavender in one of the baskets. So, yeah, it just seemed to fit in quite well. So there you go. So it's just beautifully popped in a bunch of lavender. There's a couple of different, actually, that one's a really nice
That's
one.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's
Yeah, I
really
like that one.
and it's beautifully toned it and just popped it in, so you can play around with things like that. Another thing that irritated me on a couple of the images, and I just thought I'd cover it here. It's up to you whether you want to go this bonkers or not. Sometimes I tend to. So her nail polish is a little bright in some of the things, and sometimes that was annoying me. Other images I didn't care, but sometimes it just sort of drove me nuts. So I could either tone it down or I could change the color entirely. So I put in a hue saturation, and then what I have done is I've put a mask on that, and I'm going to paint that back in, and you would go through and paint all her nails. So I could either colorize that and make it whatever color I want. So if I wanted it to be purple to match in with the flowers, or if I wanted it to be more in tone with this sort of pinky color on her dress, I could do that as well. And it just needs a little bit of a cleanup. Oh, wrong button. And then you sit there and you go, oh, what color do I want?
I like the purple.
Yeah, purple was nice.
And then, of course, it's just a matter of adjusting the intensity and how bright or how dark you want it. I need to zoom in and clean it up now because it's driving me nuts. Whoop. But yeah, so I'm literally just painting that in. Now, if I wanted to do that in Lightroom, I could do it in Lightroom as well. So before, the nail just really sort of stood out, whereas now that I've coloured it in, it's sort of, you can't really notice it so much. So just little things like that can make an image. So if I was to swap over here, so I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to go back to that point color that I picked before, and I'm going to pick on that. And then it is limited what you can do with the point color, but you can shift it. See how it's affecting the other colors in her hands?
Yeah.
That's what you sort of have to be careful with. If you click on this visual range, you can see where it's affecting. So you can actually change, like if you bring some of those marks in, you can see where it's affecting and not affecting your color. Just depends on what other things there are in the skin tone. So, but you can change it a little bit. You can soften it down. Without doing too much on the hands. Couple of other things I would suggest for portrait. Let me just go back to this one. Okay, so it depends on how much retouching you want to do or you don't want to do. Things like denoise and things like that, of course, you can run through Lightroom. You don't have to get in another program. I would recommend, as I said before, just with the healing tool, just coming in and just getting rid of a few little flyaway hairs. I would zoom in so you can see sort of what you're doing and have your thing a little bit on the smaller side. And just clean up a few of these, which tend to be a little bit annoying. But that's just me. Other things that you can do, I would suggest, there's some really cool tools now when it comes to Lightroom. So if you go down to your adaptive things, if you click on adaptive portraits, just click that. I prefer the glamour portrait because what it does, and just takes a second, it puts individual masks on your face. So you would have a mask for skin, a mask for eyes, a mask for lips, for teeth, and you can alter them all individually. Whereas if you just click on enhance portrait or polish portrait or whatever, it sort of does everything in one go. So if I click on mask, so what it's done is it's set up one for, and I'm just going to show you. So there's one for teeth. So if I want to maybe brighten the teeth up, see how it's in red there? That means that's the area that's selected. So if I wanted to maybe just highlight her teeth a little more, I could bring the highlight or the exposure up. If you want to whiten somebody's teeth, if you bring the color temperature to the blue just a touch, anything that you add a bit of blue in, that will just brighten the teeth up a little bit. Lips, again, you can do if you wanted to enhance the color. So, for instance, if I brought the tint more over to the magenta, or I can go into the hue saturation, and this can get a bit funky. I can change the color. Come on. There we go. It took a second to work. So I can change the color of her lipstick. Again, this is good for a giggle as well. So you can do stuff like that. If you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I've done, just double click in the middle, it'll reset it. It just takes a second for it to reset. So if you're playing around with stuff like that and you go, oh my God, where have I gotten? Just double click it and it'll reset it. You can lighten up the hair, you can fix eyebrows, you can, with the facial skin tones, you can do things like when I find what I'm looking for. So you can drop the texture and the clarity of the skin. And what that does, it'll soften it a little bit. I think it's too strong here, so I'm just going to bring it back a little bit. Whoop, come on. And you can do it that way. And because the skin is separated from everything else, you won't end up softening the eyes or the teeth, which makes it look really weird. You're just softening the skin off a little bit. So that's a really nice way to do it. And then something else that you can do, which for the eye, now is it gonna, so you can brighten your eyes up as well. So that's something else you can do. Again, if you go in and bring your highlights up or bring your exposure up, and if somebody's got red eyes or anything like that, if you just nudge the color temperature just to the blue, just a touch, you could actually make their eyes look a little whiter and a little clearer. The other thing that I really like to do with portraits is I'm going to select a new mask, and I'm going to hit a brush mask. And I'm just going to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing a bit more. And I'm just going to make my brush a little bit smaller. Oh, maybe not that small. I'm going to come through here and, oh, hello Lightroom, come back. I'm going to come through here, and what I'm going to do, now I've actually got some presets in here when it decides, oh, good Lord, what is my Lightroom doing? But essentially, I'm going to bring the highlights up just to give a little bit of a highlight into the eyes. It's just, I think it's having a hissy fit because I'm recording. I've got Photoshop open. I've got everything happening. So it's all just having a bit of a panic attack. Come on. So, yeah, so I've got some presets that I use, but that is putting a little bit of light back into the eyes. So it just gives a really nice pop to the eyes, whereas you may not have had that before. So that's pretty much it. So is there anything else I need to cover or I haven't covered, or?
That's enough for me.
Yes.
To like, it might overwhelm me if there's any more.
Yes.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. That's, yeah, I didn't want to go over too much, but at the same time, I wanted to give you a bit. But that's why if I record it, and I'll put it up on YouTube, and I'll send everybody a link in a couple of days, you can then go back and rewatch it if you want to, and you can play with it, watch a bit and play with it, and watch a bit and play with it. So, yeah, and do it that way.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Julie. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming, and yeah, I'm going to basically wrap it up there. But yeah, and thanks for coming Friday night. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some great shots. And
yes, lots.
No, it was good. Thank you.
yeah, I know. I walked away with way too many photos. Way too many photos. If I take my filters off, then I'm like, yeah, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos, and they were just the A roll. B-roll didn't even get loaded into Lightroom. So, yeah, still working my way through a lot of those. All right. Well, thank you, ladies. And
Thank you.
I'm just going to stop sharing.
Okay, thank you.
And
Bye.
yeah, no worries. And I
Okay.
will hopefully see you soon.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll see you on Sunday.
Bye.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And I'll see you the following week, don't I, Mark?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no worries.
No scary creatures for me.
No, I'm still, I've got to deal with that. Yeah. I'll be the one standing at the back with the long lens.
Thanks.
I'm thinking it'll be okay because it'll be in a controlled environment.
Look, yeah, that Josh, the handler, he's the owner. He'll be there. He'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. I will.
All right.
I'll see you later.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.